today would be occupational lung diseases. Okay, so today we'll be studying occupational lung diseases. I will begin with some introduction. We'll go to diseases associated with organic dust, the toxic chemicals, and also something about hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So basically, this lecture is going to cover two chapters of Harrison: occupational lung diseases and hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So these is a table from Robbins telling about telling about human diseases associated with occupational exposures. So basically, various occupations can affect various systems, multiple systems and multiple organs in our body. It can affect the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, nervous system, the urinary system, gene toxicity and bladder cancer, the reproductive system, male infertility, female infertility, the hematopoietic system, some leukemias, the skin, and even the GI tract. So the lecture will be limited to the respiratory system. So what are occupational lung diseases? So basically these are diseases of lung arising out of or in course of employment. So basically damage to the lungs caused by dust or fumes or noxious substances inhaled by workers in certain specific occupations. Now, why do we need to study the occupational lung diseases? Because such knowledge of such occupational and environmental exposures is very important in patient management and prognosis. For example, patients with occupational asthma or hypersensitivity pneumonitis often cannot be managed adequately without cessation of exposure to the offending agent. So we need to withdraw the offending agent for the as a part of treatment of the diseases. And also the establishment of the cause may have significant legal and financial implications for a patient who can no longer work in his or her usual job. So there are some determinants of the inhalation exposure that we have. Definitely the chemical and physical characteristics of inhaled agents affect both the dose and the site of deposition in the respiratory tract. For example, certain gases which are water soluble, like ammonium sulfur dioxide, they can easily get absorbed, right? So since they can easily get absorbed, they will be absorbed in the lining fluid of the upper and proximal airway itself. So proximal airways may these water soluble gases they get absorbed, and thus they only tend to produce some irritative and bronchoconstrictive responses. In contrast, gases which are less soluble like nitrogen dioxide and phosgene, it penetrates to the bronchial and alveoli in sufficient quantities to produce acute chemical pneumonitis. Okay. Another very important determinant would be the particle size of the air contaminants. So coming to the particle size, particles more than 10 to 15 micrometers in diameter, due to their settling velocities, they do not penetrate beyond the nose and the throat. While the particles between 2.5 to 10 micrometers, they constitute the coarse mode fraction, and these particles mostly deposit relatively high and relatively proximal in the tracheobronchial tree, and these would contain crustal elements like silica, aluminium, and iron. While the particles less than 2.5 micrometers constitute the fine mode fraction, and they are carried to the lower airways. These particles are created primarily by the burning of fossil fuels or high temperature industrial processes, resulting in condensation products from gases, fumes, or vapors. So the particles less than 2.5 micrometers are the ones we need to worry about. And these particles are also not able to get phagocytosed by the macrophages. And these are the ones responsible for most of the occupational lung diseases. Okay. So this is the table of the occupational exposure and associated respiratory conditions. And this table is what we'll be studying throughout the lecture. So basically here we have the occupational exposures and the corresponding nature of the respiratory responses here, right? So the occupational exposures have been divided into three parts. One is the inorganic dusts, then comes the organic dust, and third are other environmental agents. So we'll be studying them one by one. The inorganic dust would include asbestos, silica, coal dust, beryllium, and some other metals. The organic dust would contain cotton dust, grain dust, and various agricultural dust like fungal spores, vegetable products, and insect fragments. And there are also toxic chemicals. We'll be talking about them in the subsequent slides. Okay. So coming to the inorganic dust, first we'll be talking about asbestos. So asbestos can be exposed through three types of exposure: the direct exposure to the workers, bystander exposure, and community exposure. So direct exposure would be during the production of asbestos products, that is during mining, milling, and manufacturing. Also, workers in shipbuilding and construction trades, including pipe fitters and boiler markers. And basically, asbestos was very widely used during 20th century for its thermal and electric insulation properties, and manufacture of fire-resistant textiles in cement and floor tiles, and friction materials like brake and clutch linings. So the workers get directly exposed who are working in such industries. Second would be the bystander exposure, where such as painters or electricians who have worked alongside insulation workers in a shipyard. I've already told you asbestos was widely used for its thermal and insulation properties. So the painters or electricians who were working alongside the insulation workers, this is called the bystander exposure. While the community exposure constitutes the use of asbestos, the asbestos containing mine and mill tailings such as landfill, road surface, and even playground materials can lead to community exposure of asbestos. So coming to manifestations, we'll be studying basically five basic manifestations of asbestosis. Five basic manifestations of asbestos. So the first one being the benign pleural effusion. This benign pleural effusion is due to short-term exposure of just 1 to 2 years. This effusion may the fluid is typically serous or bloody exudate, and the effusion may slowly progressive or it mostly dissolves spontaneously. So this pleural effusion is benign in nature and usually resolves spontaneously. The second manifestation of asbestos would be the pleural plaques. The pleural plaques. Now, these pleural plaques are also due to short-term exposures of just 1 to 2 years. These plaques are characterized by either thickening or calcification along the parietal pleura. So here we have the parietal pleura, and we can see thickening or calcification along the parietal pleura, particularly along the lower lung fields, the diaphragm, and the cardiac borders. The lower lung field, the diaphragm, and the cardiac borders. So this is very important. The pleural plaques are basically calcifications along the parietal pleura, very importantly along the lower lung fields. And without any additional manifestations, pleural plaque imply only exposure and not pulmonary impairment. So basically, the patient can present with a more severe manifestation of asbestos, and the presence of pleural plaque simply indicates an exposure. Like during the pleural plaque stage, there is not much pulmonary symptoms, and there is no pulmonary impairment as such. And pleural plaque simply indicate exposure, a short-term exposure of 1 to 2 years. The next manifestation would be asbestosis, and that which is simply the asbestos causing interstitial lung disease. ILD is interstitial lung disease. This asbestosis is due to long-term exposure, 10 to 15 years of exposure. How does it happen? So basically, the asbestos fibers cause oxidative injury due to generation of reactive oxygen species by the transition metals on the surface of the fibers. And the clinical features would include progressive dyspnea and cough. On the pulmonary function test, there would be an ILD pattern, that is a restrictive pattern, will be seen with a decrease in both lung volume and diffusing capacity. And the X-rays will again show the features of the interstitial lung disease, that are irregular or linear opacities, usually first noted in the lower lung fields, and then also an indistinct lung heart border or a ground glass appearance of lung field may be seen. The HRCT shows distinct changes, something known as subpleural curvilinear lines. So this image is showing in the HRCT. This is the pleura, and just beneath the pleura would be the subpleural portion. So subpleural curvilinear lines like these can be seen in the HRCT. This is the black arrow showing the subpleural curvilinear lines, while this white arrow is nothing but the calcifications. The pleural plaque of the calcifications can be seen by the white arrows. The black arrows are showing the subpleural curvilinear lines. So again, these are characteristics of an interstitial lung disease, and basically the linear and lenticular opacities characterizing the asbestosis. And since the fibrosis has already taken place in this asbestosis, the prognosis is very poor, and supportive care is same as given to any patient with a diffuse interstitial fibrosis of any cause, and nothing much can be done at this stage. So this is asbestosis, that is nothing but the interstitial lung disease due to long-term exposure of 10 to 15 years. This is a histopathological image of asbestosis. So this is a very important slide taken from this image is taken from Robbins. So basically this is showing you an asbestos body. So what is an asbestos body? There's an asbestos body of golden brown, fusiform or beaded rods with translucent center and consists of asbestos fibers coated with an iron containing proteinaceous material. So basically we have an asbestos fiber which gets coated with an iron containing proteinaceous material, and these two together make something called as asbestos body. They How do they form? They arise when macrophages phagocytose the asbestos fibers, and iron is presumably derived from the phagocyte ferritin. So basically, other than asbestos, other inorganic particulates may become coated with similar iron protein complexes, and these are called ferruginous bodies. So basically, these are ferruginous bodies, most commonly seen in asbestos, but they can also be seen in other inorganic dust like asbestos itself, the coal worker pneumocinosis, and organ silicosis. But most commonly it is seen in asbestosis, and these ferruginous bodies, when seen in asbestosis, are known as asbestos bodies. Right, this in the picture, and the typical beading and knobbed ends are shown here. So this is an histopathological examination and obtained by doing lung biopsy of the patient, which is very rare to do in such patients. But if we do, asbestos body is a very important finding, and this is also a very important MCQ which is coming in PG entrance exams. Okay. So the fourth and the fifth manifestation. The fourth manifestation of asbestos would be lung cancer. Minimum latency of 15 to 19 years between first exposure and development of the disease. So basically 15 to 19 years का exposure is needed for lung cancer to happen. Most common lung cancer would be the bronchogenic cancer. Usme bhi adenocarcinoma is much more common than squamous cell carcinoma. And definitely significant interactive effect of smoking and asbestos exposure results in a greater risk than would have been expected from the additive effect of each other. So if a person is also smoking along with asbestos exposure, that certainly presents as a greater risk for lung carcinoma. Talking about mesothelioma, basically relatively short-term asbestos exposure of even 1 to 2 years is enough to cause mesothelioma, but it is associated with a latent period. That is, the patient may present to you after 40 years of this 1 to 2 year of exposure with presenting with mesothelioma. So basically, that is why in mesothelioma patient, a good history taking, often even a small 1 to 2 year of asbestos exposure in the past 40 years is important, and that can also lead to development of mesothelioma. And this mesothelioma can be both pleural and peritoneal based. And in contrast to lung cancers, these tumors do not appear to be associated with smoking. Okay, so this was asbestosis. We studied 5 manifestations of asbestos: the benign pleural effusion, the very important pleural plaques, the key feature being they are present in the lower lung fields, asbestosis, which is nothing but the asbestos leading to interstitial lung disease, the lung cancer, and the mesothelioma. Okay, so coming back to the table, we are done with asbestos found in mining, processing, construction, ship repair. We studied about the asbestosis fibrosis, that is interstitial lung disease, the pleural diseases, that is the benign pleural effusion and the pleural plaques, the lung carcinoma and mesothelioma. And virtually all the new mining and construction with asbestos done in the developing countries. Okay, so next inorganic dust we'll be studying is silica. Okay. So silicosis. Okay, so silica, basically free silica, that is SiO2, or crystalline quartz is still a major cause of the disease, and the major occupational exposure includes stone cutting, sandblasting. This image is showing sandblasting. So stone cutting, sandblasting, glass and cement manufacturing, foundry work, packing of silica flour, and coring, particularly of granite. And most often pulmonary fibrosis due to silica exposure occurs in a dose response fashion after many years of exposure. Coming to the manifestations of silicosis, acute silicosis needs only 10 months of exposure, and 10 months of exposure of the sandblasting in confined spaces, tunneling through rock with high quartz content, and even manufacture of abrasive soaps. 10 months of good exposure of these things can lead to acute silicosis. So what is acute silicosis? Basically, acute silicosis is kind of a pneumonitis where the chest X-ray may show profuse miliary infiltration or consolidation. Miliary infiltration consolidation is a unique finding of acute silicosis seen on chest X-ray, and a characteristic HRCT pattern known as crazy paving is seen in acute silicosis. The disease may be quite severe and progressive, and it may be progressive despite the discontinuation of the exposure. So in this HRCT, we can see these tiny ground glass densities. The ground glass densities with thickened intralobular and interlobular septa, and also multiple small nodules are also seen, consistent with silicosis. So these diffuse ground glass densities produce something known as polygonal shapes, and this is known as crazy paving pattern. The crazy paving pattern seen in HRCT of acute silicosis. ठीक है. And definitely whole lung lavage may provide symptomatic relief and slow down the progression of the disease. Coming to the acute silicosis, this would need a less intense exposure but a long-term exposure of 15 to 20 years. And again, small rounded opacity seen in the upper lobes. Small round opacities seen in the upper lobes will appear without associated impairment of the lung function. That is, this is simple silicosis. There will be small rounded opacity in the upper lobe without any much impairment of the lung function, and calcification of the hilar nodes. Calcification of the hilar nodes may occur, and it also produces a characteristic eggshell pattern. Hilar nodes producing a characteristic eggshell pattern. And silicotic nodules will obviously be identified more readily by an HRCT. So these arrows are showing you silicotic nodules, subpleural silicotic nodules. Okay. So characteristic feature of chronic silicosis would be small rounded opacities in the upper lobe and calcification of hilar nodes giving an eggshell pattern. So please note, asbestosis involved lower lung fields. There were opacities in the lower lung fields, while silicosis has opacities in upper lobes. Okay, so the opacities in upper lobes along with hilar nodes giving an eggshell pattern. These two things are characteristic of chronic silicosis. Other manifestation would include something known as complicated silicosis. So basically, even in the absence of further exposure, the nodular fibrosis becomes more and more progressive, and it is associated with coalescence and formation of non-segmental conglomerates of irregular masses, which are often more than 1 centimeter in diameters. And these irregular masses, they become quite large, and when this occurs, the term progressive massive fibrosis is applied. The term progressive massive fibrosis is usually applied, and there is significant functional impairment with both restrictive and obstructive components, and may be associated with progressive massive fibrosis. So this is the gross specimen of the lung, showing you advanced silicosis. As you can see, there is scarring. Which has contracted the upper lobe into a small dark mass. This arrow is showing a small dark mass, and also please note the dense pleural thickening. Okay, so this is what advanced silicosis in gross would look like. And a very unique point about silicosis is that its association with tuberculosis. So basically what happens is the silica causes alveolar macrophage dysfunction. So basically those lung infections which involve these cells, that is the alveolar macrophages, as a primary defense would be more exacerbated. So basically greater risk of acquiring lung infection that involving these cells as a primary defense, and these lung infections which are killed by the alveolar macrophages are usually Mycobacterium tuberculosis, atypical Mycobacter, and the fungi. So these there is more increased risk of acquiring such infections because silica is causing alveolar macrophage dysfunction. And because of the increased risk of active tuberculosis, the recommended treatment of latent tuberculosis in these patients is much longer. Okay. So this was about silica, where we studied the 4 manifestations, the acute silicosis, which occurred after 10 months exposure, and characteristically profuse miliary infiltration. So as you can see, this miliary infiltration can also mimic tuberculosis, and characteristic HRCT pattern known as crazy paving pattern. The chronic silicosis, as I told you, small round opacity in the upper lobes, and calcification of the hilar nodes giving an eggshell pattern. The complicated silicosis resulting in progressive massive fibrosis, and also association of tuberculosis with silicosis. So this was silica, the mining, stone cutting and sandblasting industries fibrosis पढ़ लिया, progressive massive fibrosis. Definitely cancer is also possible, but it is less likely, and it can also present as chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. The third we're going to study is the coal dust. The coal dust. So the coal dust results in something known as coal workers pneumoconiosis, and it is occurs due to occupational exposure of obviously coal dust. Simple radiographically identified coal workers pneumoconiosis is seen in 10% of all coal miners and as many as 50% of the anthracite miners. So this can be simple coal workers pneumoconiosis due to prolonged exposure of coal dust around 15 to 20 years, where small and round opacity similar to those of silicosis may develop. ठीक है. And in complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis, there is appearance on the chest x-ray of nodules more than 1 centimeter in diameter, again confined to the upper half of the lungs. And as in silicosis, this condition may progress to progressive massive fibrosis. Okay, but no, there is no hyaloid lymphadenopathy. So this is how we can differentiate in silicosis. In chronic silicosis, to be specific, I told you that there are two characteristic things. One, small rounded opacities in the upper lobes. Second, associated with hyaloid lymphadenopathy, which gives an eggshell calcification like picture. But in coal workers pneumoconiosis, yes, there is upper lobe involvement, but there is no hyaloid lymphadenopathy. So this is a image from Robin, the gross specimen, showing you progressive massive fibrosis seen in complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis. And as you can see, there are large blackened scars located principally in the upper lobe. Principally, the upper lobe is involved, right? The coal dust can also cause chronic bronchitis and COPD. Chronic bronchitis and COPD is also possible, and with basically simple and complicated coal workers pneumoconiosis. Involvement of upper lobes with no hyaloid lymphadenopathy. Okay. So this was about coal dust, which is seen in occupation like mining. There is fibrosis, coal workers pneumoconiosis, progressive massive fibrosis, and also associated with COPD. And definitely the risk is increasing in countries where new mines are opening. The fourth and the last inorganic dust will be the beryllium, which is a processing alloy for high-tech industries. So beryllium is a lightweight metal with tensile strength, good electrical conductivity, and value in the control of nuclear reactions. And it's definitely important for manufacturing of alloys, ceramics, and high technology electronics. So beryllium is known to produce acute pneumonitis. An acute pneumonitis characterized by acute fever, cough, and bilateral pneumonitis. But more commonly, this beryllium will present something known as the chronic beryllium disease. The chronic beryllium disease is nothing but a chronic granulomatous inflammatory disease. It is a granulomatous inflammatory disease, and since being granulomatous, that will be a very important differential diagnosis would be sarcoidosis. It is a very similar to sarcoidosis. So how to differentiate between them? So the clinical features and even radiological findings are very similar of both sarcoidosis and chronic beryllium disease. In fact, in patients of sarcoidosis, it's very important to take a history of exposure of beryllium is very important. The history of exposure of beryllium is very important. The distinguishing factor definitely of chronic beryllium disease from sarcoidosis would be the evidence of specific cell-mediated immune response, that is a delayed hypersensitivity to beryllium. And how to note this, how to demonstrate this, this delayed hypersensitivity to beryllium can be demonstrated by something known as the beryllium lymphocyte proliferation test. The beryllium lymphocyte proliferation test. This beryllium lymphocyte proliferation test compares the in vitro proliferation of lymphocytes from the blood or the bronchoalveolar lavage in the presence of beryllium salts with that of the unstimulated cells. So this is how we differentiate sarcoidosis from chronic beryllium disease. And the chest X-ray findings, as I told you, would be very similar to sarcoidosis, that is presence of nodules along the septal lines, except hyalin adenopathy is somewhat less common. And again, as with sarcoidosis, in the PFT or the pulmonary function test, may show restrictive or obstructive pattern. If we do a lung biopsy, in beryllium sensitized individual, there would be presence of non-caginating granulomas, or monocytic infiltration in the lung tissue. So these non-caginating granulomas are again seen in sarcoidosis also. But the non-caginating granulomas of sarcoidosis are more organized, and these, in fact, the non-caginating granulomas of chronic beryllium disease are patchy and not they're disorganized. So, lung biopsy में non-caginating granulomas or monocytic infiltration would be seen, and definitely the only pneumoconiosis with a genetic marker is chronic beryllium disease because it is highly associative with human leukocyte antigen DP, HLA, DP alleles. So this is a very important point to note. the pneumocorrosive with the genetic marker is chronic beryllium disease. So this was very short about chronic beryllium disease. So it may produce acute pneumonitis, but most common would be a chronic beryllium disease, which is characterized by chronic granulomatous inflammation. And how to differentiate between them? By the beryllium lymphocyte proliferation test. Okay, so coming back to the table, we are done with the inorganic dust. The inorganic dust हमने asbestos पढ़ा, silica पढ़ा, coal dust पढ़ा और हमने पढ़ा beryllium. Definitely there are other metals like aluminium, chromium, cobalt, nickel, which cause a wide variety of conditions from acute pneumonitis to lung cancer and asthma. And definitely more and more new diseases are appearing with new process development. But these four are very important to know. ठीक है. Now coming to the organic dust. So organic dust we will be studying, an overview is given here. We will be studying the cotton dust, the grain dust, various other agriculture dust and the toxic chemicals. Okay. In the organic dust, we'll be studying cotton dust. So the occupational lung disease caused by cotton dust is known as bicyanosis, where the workers occupationally exposed to cotton dust, but also to flax, hemp, and jute dust. In the production of yarns for textiles and rope making, the cotton is used, and the patient is at a risk of an asthma-like syndrome. So basically, bicyanosis is nothing but an asthma-like syndrome, and there are two stages of chest tightness. Two stages of chest tightness in here. One would be an occasional chest tightness in the early stage, while there is another called as regular chest tightness, the regular late stage chest tightness, which occurs towards the end of the first day of the work week. So during the work week, the first day would be Monday, so something known as Monday chest tightness. And after 10 years of exposure, workers with recurrent symptoms are most likely to have an obstructive pattern on the PFTs. So as we know, the asthma is nothing but is causing an obstructive pattern on PFT. So this bicyanosis is nothing but an asthma-like syndrome occurring in workers exposed to cotton dust. And definitely dust exposure can be reduced by the use of exhaust hoods, general increase in ventilation, the wetting procedures, and also respiratory protective equipments. So this was all about cotton dust. Second will be the grain dust. Worldwide, many farmers and workers in grain storage facilities are exposed to grain dust. And it is very important to know that the presentation would be again of an obstructive airway disease, and it is virtually identical to those seen in cigarette smokers. मतलब grain dust exposure में there will be a persistent cough, mucus hypersecretion, wheeze, and dyspnea on exertion, and an obstructive pattern is seen, that is FE1 FC ratio would be decreased. Okay, so we studied these two things, the cotton dust, important industries being the milling industry, processing industry. The asthma-like syndrome caused by cotton dust is nothing but the bicyanosis, and it can also cause chronic bronchitis and COPD. And grain dust seen in elevator agents, dock workers, milling and bakers, again causing asthma, chronic bronchitis, COPD. Basically the features of cigarette smokers seen in grain dust. ठीक है. तो इसको मैंने बड़ा कर दिया है. And now we're going to study other agricultural dust. The other agricultural dust includes the fungal spores, the vegetable products, insect fragments, animal dander, bird rotten feces, endotoxins, microorganisms, and pollens. So these together, they have a manifestation of something known as hypersensitivity pneumonitis. Hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So this is an entirely different topic called hypersensitivity pneumonitis, caused by these other agricultural dust and also by some toxic chemicals. So this is given as a separate chapter in Harrison, and I would be quickly going through the what is hypersensitivity pneumonitis and its clinical features. Okay. So hypersensitivity pneumonitis is also known as extrinsic allergic alveolitis. Why? Because it occurs due to exposure of certain allergens. It affects the alveoli, and these allergens are extrinsic allergens coming from outside the body. So also referred to as extrinsic allergic alveolitis, this hypersensitive pneumonitis or HP is a pulmonary disease that occurs due to inhalation exposure of a variety of antigens, leading to inflammatory response of the alveoli and small airways. So the key points are that it is an entirely pulmonary disease. It occurs due to inhalational exposure of a variety of antigens, and inflammatory response would be present in alveoli and the small airways. And it is more of a type 3 hypersensitivity reaction than a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. दोनों लिखे हैं because there are certain points favoring type 3 hypersensitivity reaction. For example, presence of precipitants, presence of IgG antibodies, while non-caseating adenoma seen in HP point favors type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. But if someone asks or there's an MCQ or something, type 3 is more preferable answer than type 4. So basically, it is nothing but an immune-mediated condition occurring in response to inhaled antigens that are small enough to deposit in the distal airways and alveoli. Okay, so basically it's an extrinsic allergic alveolitis. This is a table of examples of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So in the farming food processing industry, we have something known as farmer's lung. The disease is called farmer's lung, and the source would be grains, moldy hay, grains and moldy hay, and the antigen present in the source is thermophilic actinomycetes. The fungi known as the Thermophilus actinomycetes present on the grain of moldy hay causing farmer's lung. So farmer's lung is nothing but a hypersensitive pneumonitis caused by Thermophilus actinomycetes, source being moldy hay and grain. If the source is sugarcane, the source is sugarcane, antigen being the same, thermophilic actinomyces, the hypersensitive pneumonitis is known as Bagasosis. Bagasosis. Bagasosis is a hypersensitive pneumonitis caused due to again thermophilic actinomyces, source being sugarcane. So these two are very important and very commonly seen. There are many other examples of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. The sources being cheese, coffee beans, barley, wheat flour, mushrooms, moldy hay, along with potatoes, tobacco causing tobacco growth lung, grapes causing winemaker's lung. Even birds and other animals can be causing this. The source being the bird feathers droppings and causing known as bird fancier's lung. Ducks causing duck's fever, laboratory rats causing laboratory workers' lung, chickens causing poultry workers' lung, and turkeys causing turkeys handling disease. Other occupational environmental exposures like chemical workers' lung due to polyurethane foam, varnish, and detergent causing detergent lungs, contaminated water and mold on ceiling causing hot tub lung. There is some and hypersensitivity pneumonitis known as humidifier fever. Humidifier fever and air conditioner lung due to humidifiers and contaminated water in the air conditioners. Please note that if you recall from microbiology, you study something known as Legionella. Legionella का भी the source was contaminated water in the air conditioners, but that disease is separate from this known as the air conditioner lung. Please remember this: the air conditioner lung is not caused by Legionella, but it is caused by several other microorganisms. These microorganisms listed here, and their source is also contaminated water of humidifiers and air conditioners. This is known as air conditioner lung. It is an hypersensitivity pneumonitis. Okay. Other examples include machine operator's lung, sauna taker's lung, and all these things. Okay, so these are many examples of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So quickly going through the clinical features of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. So I have acute, subacute, and chronic stages of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. The acute HP occurs within minutes to hours of exposure. It will present typically as fever, chills, and dyspnea, mimicking asthma. It is very acute in nature, and the X-ray and CT would be normal. And management would simply be stopping of the antigen exposure. There is usually complete recovery and no residual lesions. So basically, acute HP has a good prognosis within minutes to hours, and the management would be simply to stop the antigen exposure, and the patient will be fine. The subacute HP, which is the most common form seen, develops by exposure, which is gradual over weeks. The respiratory impairment is quite severe in subacute hypersensitivity pneumonitis, with bilateral infiltrates in the upper lobes. Very importantly, in the upper lobes, the HRCT shows something known as the mosaic pattern, and the management here is also to stop the antigen exposure, but giving steroids is also necessary. So as you can see, in subacute hypersensitivity pneumonitis, HRCT is showing something known as mosaic pattern. So basically, this black area is the normal area, while this lightish area is the affected pattern. So normal affected, normal affected, normal affected. So this is known as a mosaic pattern. Scattered regions of ground glass infiltrates in the mosaic pattern consisting with air trapping are seen bilaterally. this patient has Burt-Fencer's lung. So this is subacute hypersensitivity pneumonitis. The third form would be chronic HP. This chronic HP has a most poor prognosis and is a more gradual exposure of the antigen, presents with progressive dyspnea, cough, fatigue, and weight loss. Clubbing is a very important feature present in this, and ultimately there is progression to lung fibrosis and hypoxemia. Since there is fibrosis, there are irreversible changes associated, and therefore the prognosis is very poor, and the management is steroids, but nothing much can really be done in chronic HP. So these are clinical features of the hypersensitive pneumonitis. कुछ भी हो इनमें से, the clinical features more or less remain the same. Very important being farmer lung due to thermophilic actinomycetes, grain molding, and bagasosis due to sugarcane. ठीक है. The diagnosis of HP. The diagnosis of HP, history is very important for the offending agent, and a careful occupational and home history should be taken. In the chest X-ray, in a subacute HP, ground glass airspace opacities will be seen along with central lobular nodules, while in chronic HP, lenticular changes and traction bronchostasis like ILD is seen. Okay. And in PFT, either an restrictive or obstructive pattern will be found, and therefore the PFT is not as such important for diagnosis, but definitely its use is there in characterizing the physiological impairment of an individual patient and causing the response to antigen avoidance or corticosteroid therapy. So to monitor the corticosteroid therapy and to monitor ki kitna response aa raha hai therapy se, we can always use the pulmonary function test. Serum precipitants, the assaying of the precipitating IgG antibodies against the specific antigens can be used as a useful adjunct in the diagnosing of HP, but this is not very useful because the presence of just a presence of an immunological response alone is not sufficient for establishing a diagnosis. Why? Because many symptomatic individuals, many farmers, many pigeon breeders with high levels of exposure to antigen may display the serum precipitants without actually having a symptomatic disease. And bronchoscopy when we do a bronchoalveolar lavage, the bronchoalveolar lavage lymphocytosis is characteristic with a CD4 CD8 lymphocyte ratio less than 1. And in lung biopsy, non-caseating granulomas can be seen in the vicinity of small airways. A mixed cell infiltrate with lymphocytic predominance can also be seen, and fibrosis can also be present, particularly in the chronic subset of hypersensitivity pneumonitis. ठीक है, तो hypersensitivity pneumonitis को summarize अगर हम करें तो it's a pulmonary disease due to inhalational exposure and leading to an inflammatory response of alveolar and small airways. These are the various examples of hypersensitivity pneumonitis: farmer's lung, Bagases, Burt-Fencer's lung, air conditioner lung, ये सब चीजें. ठीक है. Acute, subacute, chronic होता है. Acute has a very good prognosis within minutes to hours of exposure, and there will be complete recovery simply by stopping the antigen exposure. Subacute hypersensitivity would be gradual in weeks. There is bilateral infiltration upper lobes, the mosaic pattern, and management would be to stop antigen exposure and steroids. While chronic hypersensitivity pneumonitis more gradual, more going towards the ILD pattern. Clubbing present, lung fibrosis, and eventually irreversible changes होता है. It's a very poor prognosis. ठीक है. So coming back to our original table, हम कहाँ तक पहुँच गए? हम यहाँ तक पहुँच गए हैं. So other agricultural dust जो ये सब थे, these cause something known as hypersensitivity pneumonitis or farmer's lung. Definitely asthma, chronic bronchitis भी cause कर सकते हैं. Okay. Now coming to the toxic chemicals. Toxic chemicals in a wide variety of industries, and these toxic chemicals basically can cause asthma, chronic bronchitis, COPD, definitely hypersensitivity pneumonitis, and some may also cause cancer. Okay, so the toxic chemicals का मेरे पास एक बहुत बड़ा list है. तो इसमें I can see such some chemical agents, the selected exposures, and उनका acute effect क्या होता है and chronic effect क्या होता है. So basically if the agent का high or accidental exposure हो रहा है, the acute effect होंगे. If the relatively prolonged low exposure will have chronic effects. ठीक है, so you can go through this table to have a broad knowledge कि क्या ऐसे क्या होता है. We have acid anhydrides causing nasal irritation, cough and asthma and hypersensitivity pneumonitis. We have acid fumes in the manufacture of fertilizers, nitric acid आ गया यहाँ पर. Then we have acrolein and aldehydes. We have ammonia. We have cadmium fumes. We have formaldehyde, very famous for causing nasopharyngeal carcinoma. if there is a prolonged low exposure. And formaldehyde to manufacture of leathers, rubber, metal, wood, and सब में use होता है. Then we have halides like chlorine, bromine, and fluorides. Bleaching में use होते हैं ये सब चीज़ें. And again upper respiratory tract irritation होगा. Hydrogen sulfide, isocyanates, then nitrogen dioxide, ozone, arc welding में होता है, and flower bleaching में होगा. Phosgene, sulfur dioxide. So these you can go through this table, not very important, but just for the completion sake, I've included all these toxic chemicals causing आपका occupational lung disease. ठीक है. So last point, something about the World Trade Center disaster, which occurred on the 11th of September 2001. So basically, this also resulted in heavy exposure of a large number of firefighters and other rescue workers to the dust generated by the collapse of the building. So when the building collapse हुआ था, there were many rescue workers and fighters which were affected, possibly because of high alkalinity of the World Trade Center dust, and significant cough, wheeze, and sputum production was occurred among firefighters and the cleanup crews, right? And a heavier exposure to WTC dust among New York City firefighters was actually associated with accelerated decline of lung function over first after disaster. So first after disaster, there was accelerated decline of lung function in these firefighters and rescue workers, and more recently there have been concerns about risk of interstitial lung disease, especially of granulomatous nature, among these workers. Okay, so this is all I have to teach you about occupational lung diseases today. So basically ये वाला table हमने पढ़ा आज पूरा. Occupational exposure divided into inorganic dust, organic dust. इसमें asbestos पढ़ा हमने, इसमें pleural plaques पढ़े हमने, and acute chronic asbestosis पढ़ा, which is presenting as an ILD. And basically asbestos में भी याद करना है, it affects lower lung fields, and hilar adenopathy is seen, hilar lymphadenopathy is seen, presenting as axial calcification. Silica में it had a predisposition to affect the upper lobes. The upper lobes are affected more, and there is no hilar lymphadenopathy. The coal dust also affects the upper lobes, and chronic beryllium disease, beryllium से. Organic dust में cotton dust हो गया, bisonosis and asthma-like syndrome, grain dust, also an asthma and COPD-like syndrome, and various other agricultural dust causing hypersensitivity, pneumonitis, and toxic chemicals. Okay, so this was all about. I had to teach you about occupational lung diseases. If there are any doubts, you can contact me anywhere. Matlab you can contact me on Facebook, or you can message me on my phone. My name is Dr. Arnav Garg, and this is my blog, dravgarg.blogspot.com, and all the lectures I have been teaching, I have been uploading them on my blog. So if you missed any of those, you can just go through them.